Welcome to another edition of the Hail to Michigan podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie Harder, joined tonight by Matt. Matt, how are you?
Doing good. Short work week is wrapped up, so
Yep.
now a couple days of family and football, and before the big game.
Yeah. How'd you enjoy the game this past Saturday?
It was fun. It was obviously exceptionally cold. Um, the wind was pretty brutal at times, but it was pretty nerve-wracking game as well for um, you know 3.5 quarters or so. So
Absolutely. 4 quarters, if we're being honest.
yeah, I mean, it really wasn't until the fourth quarter where they started to the drives kind of stalled out, but where they started to string a few drives together there. But yeah, overall it was good. Atmosphere is pretty good. The stadium was pretty full, other than the top of the student section.
Yeah. I mean, considering the weather, I don't blame them for not,
Yeah,
filling that place out. So.
I honestly expected less, like not just the students. I expected kind of
I think so too.
The top group, top few, 10, 20 rows, 10, 15 rows or so. I kind of expected like those to be scattered seating. Yeah. And outside of that kind of student section area at the top, it was pretty much full.
Yeah, it was.
So I was impressed by that, given the conditions. I don't think the 110,000 attendance that they reported was
there's no way
was quite accurate. But
maybe tickets sold, but not attended.
Right, but it was a pretty good crowd. Nice to pull out a win in a situation where, in many years prior to this season and last season, Michigan loses that game. So It was nice to get the win, and made it to the big one undefeated. So
yeah, well, look, this is the game that we're going to talk about right now. It was a 1917 squeaking by win by Michigan, led by Jake Moody, last year's Lou Groza Award winner. And let's dive right into this game and get to the offensive side of the ball. I think those are the biggest questions for Michigan right now. So, kind of talk about what you saw on the offensive side of the ball for Michigan and those struggles that they had.
Yeah, I thought early in the game they did some really, really good stuff in the run game. Corum, really in the whole first half, was pretty much having his way on the ground. Offensive line seemed to continue to build even with Keegan out, and still no Trent. Well, I guess Trente Jones came in a little bit for some scattered snaps, and then he was on some special teams as well, the field goal unit, a few special teams as well. So offensive line continued to grow despite, I think that's been an underrated kind of storyline of Sharon so far. Overall, Michigan has not had tremendous injury luck on the offensive line. I mean, last year they played Nebraska, and they were at their third and fourth, number 3 and number 4 guard.
Barnhart started that game, no?
Yes, it was Barnhart. Atterbury played.
Yes.
We've for the most part, they've been pretty healthy at center in the past 2 years, but outside of center, they've kind of shuffled some pieces, and really over the course of 2 seasons have had pretty consistent results despite quite a bit of shuffling. So that's always great to see when they continue things like that. Obviously the thing that everybody wants to talk about is JJ. Really up and down. Missed a ton, more than 5, which is not great. Open guys, missed throws, accuracy wise, and then not just the missed throws in terms of being inaccurate, but missed open receivers within the progression of the play. You talk about that throw to Gash, on the flood type route. You have Loveland running a corner route there that is wide open in the end zone, and it's on the same, within the progression of the play. So, the throw to Andrew Anthony that was dropped was a great throw. But he missed he missed one to Andrell, missed one to Roman, missed one to Ronnie that I can think of, just off the top of my head. He just, as we've discussed in previous episodes, he's just been inconsistent. It's not just him. The passing game in general has been inconsistent.
I agree.
He's missing all day. All day. Then he puts a perfect throw to Andrew
and then
Anthony,
the receiver drops it,
and it goes right through his hands. On a play where they also thought Illinois jumped, which I thought could have went either way.
I thought he jumped right back before they even snapped it.
Well, I thought the nose tackle did, but I thought the guy that was over, and which is who Olu pointed to right after he snapped it, like he's trying to tell the umpire that that's why he snapped it. He points right to the guy over Zinner. So I thought it could have went either way, but that play is kind of a bang bang play. You try to take a shot when you think you got him off sides, and he throws a perfect ball and it's just missed. Obviously the gash drop, just inconsistency all the way around. It's not just JJ, it's not just the receivers, it's not just the play calling, it's everything.
It's just like a perfect storm of bad luck or just bad, quarterback play or receiver play on offense to just, make a really bad passing game.
Yep. The passing game in general, if you boil it down to, the play calling, the receiver performance and the quarterback performance, none of those three aspects has been exceptional for Michigan yet this year. So it's frustrating. When they finally get over the hump, it's gonna be like, this is what we've been talking about the whole time. It's like, well, it's kind of been there the whole time, but it just hasn't all come together.
And the talent's there. That's the disappointing part. And you can't be perfect in every single aspect of a football team. Like, Ohio State struggles with, running the football, and Georgia isn't the greatest at rushing the passer, so to say, on defense. But, with Michigan, like, they're very stout on defense. We know what they are running the football, but man, they got the talent at wide receiver. They got the talent at quarterback, obviously, but it just seems like they just can't put two and two together on offense to take it to another level that we were expecting this year.
Yeah, and it's at tight end too. We got pass catching backs. It's I do think one kind of underrated aspect of Saturday, and maybe it's not underrated because I've heard a few people talk about it, but if you're talking what the preseason depth chart was and then what they had on Saturday, you're really talking about the third and fourth tight end that were playing the majority of the snaps. You're talking about probably the fourth and fifth running back playing the majority of the snaps in the second half. You're talking about the backup left guard, not the starting right tackle at the beginning of the year, although Barnhart started a lot, since then. So, it really was, especially in the second half, it really was the perfect storm of the passing game's not clicking all that well, and Corum and Donovan are both out, and it's like, okay. And even Stokes was in and out of the game as well. So
was he injured?
To me, he took a couple shots.
He did. Yeah, he did.
So if I have to assume, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
But, he kept coming back in, and you didn't hear anything about it. So I'm not sure what was going on with Stokes, but
that was weird.
I agree. And it was really just kind of, and credit to Illinois too. The Ryan Walters name that we've probably been, I know Contown has mentioned.
We've advocated for him before, like to be the DC here.
Yes, we talked about. I mean, we've talked about him offline
Mm-hmm.
Plenty,
when he was
even
at
back to when he
Missouri.
was in Missouri. Yep.
Yeah.
He had exceptional game plan. Witherspoon is, that was one of my big takeaways from the rewatch.
There's some NFL scuttlebutt with Ryan Walters out there, by the way. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, doesn't surprise
me. Yeah, no.
Witherspoon was a stud. That's probably the best corner Michigan has seen all year.
Absolutely. It will be the best corner they see all year. He's an NFL guy. He's going to play on Sundays.
Yeah, his coverage was great, if not a little grabby at times.
Yeah.
And he was physical in the run game. I mean, he absolutely laid out Stokes at one point. So, credit to Illinois. It was a pretty good game plan for them. But, all things considered, with the injuries and the inconsistency, Michigan still put up 376 yards and five yards per play. Yeah. So things that continue to improve on. Unfortunately, there's no time left. It's got to be the best game this weekend from both the run and the pass game, but still things to work on. Fortunate to get out of there with the win for the offense. So.
Yeah, win's a win. I wasn't happy at first, but then you got to realize, like, when you're a team that's vying for a national championship hope, you got to take every win you can get, because you're not gonna blow every team out. And this Illinois team is probably the best defense that Michigan has faced all year and probably will face all year, aside from the playoff. Obviously, I mean, you can make an argument for maybe. We'll see about Ohio State this week. I think there's some holes there, but we'll get into that when we do the Ohio State preview. But so far, I think Illinois is the best defense that Michigan's faced so far this year.
I agree, and that I think that is actually saying something, because I do think some of the Big Ten numbers are inflated just because of the lack of good quarterbacks in the league. The Big Ten defensive numbers are inflated because of that. But, there are some pretty good defenses in the league, and Michigan has faced Iowa and Penn State. And I agree. I thought Illinois was the best of those three.
Definitely the most physical.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to one of the things that we've talked about, and that now I'm a huge believer in, is, that the odd front defense, the 3-4 style defense is
the way to go.
It's the way to go. And Michigan has only seen it. We didn't play Wisconsin this year. Now Nebraska runs a 3-4, but they're not any good. So,
right.
It gives you not only a unique advantage in recruiting, but when you're one of, I guess if you count Nebraska, there are 4 in the conference, but when you're one of 3 defenses in a 14-team conference that plays an odd front, it gives you a little bit of a scheduling advantage too. Teams aren't used to seeing your style of defense, and Illinois and Wisconsin are about as close to Michigan stylistically as you can get. So
yeah, absolutely,
great unit. If Minner would end up getting a head coaching job or go to the NFL, if Walters is not a head coach, I don't know that there's a dollar figure that I wouldn't be willing to pay to get him. So
to get him, yep, I would agree.
Yeah, if something would happen this offseason with Minner, and this is going down a little rabbit hole, but obviously you check on what Leonard is doing if he gets the head coaching job at Wisconsin.
Yep.
You check on Ryan Walters, see if he gets any head coaching jobs. And I mean, those would probably be the first 2 calls. So within the conference.
Yes. No, absolutely. Any last thoughts on the Michigan offense before we head over to the defensive side of the ball?
No, I thought, I think, I mentioned a little bit, there's still meat on the bone. Still things get better at.
I will say, and we did discuss this, offline, that I think if Quorum stayed healthy, this would have been a similar result to Indiana, where they would have scored somewhere around 31 points, and this wouldn't really have been a nail biter like it was. because he had 108 yards in the first half. So
Yep, and
I
a
mean,
big screen reception as well.
right. Yep. Yeah. Which he ran out of bounds on.
Yeah, they were moving the ball pretty consistently. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know what happened there, but
and he ran out of bounds on the first run too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
And
that was
then
odd.
we had a couple later in the game. Stokes should have ran out of bounds and got blasted.
And he didn't. He got blasted. Yep.
And so did Isaiah Gash.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a weird game. I'm glad you brought up that point that, like, if Corum doesn't go out, and what kind of impact that could have had on, the momentum and, the feel of the team. We talked Indiana's a kind of, a good game to bring up because similar thing happened with, now that was coach's health as opposed to injury, but
yeah,
sometimes things like that can really change the momentum of the game. An injury or a sideline incident that you never know how much impact that can have. So,
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Well, let's head over to the defensive side of the ball for Michigan, and once again, a pretty stout performance. I think the third quarter was probably the first time all season. It was the first time all season where they really struggled out of halftime to just play good defense. Chase Brown had a bulk of his yards during that quarter, but outside of that, I think they played a pretty good game considering Mike Morris was out. They were rotating guys in and out. I think Colson was a little dinged up too. That was another weird thing. I don't remember him getting hurt during the game, and I think he led the team in tackles. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but talk about Michigan's defense and what they did there.
Yeah, I thought I believe you're right. I think this is the first third quarter where they've given up more than 7 points, which is that was the exact phrase I was going to say.
Yeah.
They really obviously turned off the hose there in the fourth quarter with give up 17 all game and give up 14 in the third. So I thought interior defensive line once again. Despite the rushing output, Chase Brown did have a good game, but
yes,
I thought Mozzie and Jenkins were both still extremely effective, controlled the middle. I felt like there were a few gap fitting issues and in the run game that caused some of the bigger runs.
Would you say that was more linebacker play than the defensive lineman?
See, I didn't think it was. There was a little bit of linebacker play. Morris has a huge impact on the run game.
Yes.
And there's a lot of unique stuff when it's Morris, Jenkins, and Mozzie Smith. Michigan can basically play with 6 in the box against pretty much anyone and still contain the running game.
Stretch their running backs out.
Right.
Because that pretty much gets eliminated. So you're forcing everything up the middle.
They're able to play down a hat in the run game, which is extreme, an advantage that is extremely beneficial that not many teams have. But without Morris, you've either got to commit an extra guy, which Michigan seemed a little bit hesitant to do. It looked like to me they were staying mostly in their typical 6-man box. Occasionally they would play their base 4-3. I mean, they did play that a few snaps, but this type of offense could even require rolling the safety down. Excuse me, I said base 4-3. I meant base 3-4.
3-4, yeah.
Yeah. Occasionally, this type of offense could calls for the occasional rolling down of even a safety while in base 3-4. So even an 8-man box, this type of offense could require. And Michigan seemed pretty content to stay in a 6-man a lot of the game. I agree on the linebacker rotations. I thought that was odd. But they've been doing kind of odd things all year. It seemed Page was healthy, and based on their play this year, Page has been better than Moten. Yet Moten still played the whole game pretty much over Page. Page played some, but
I think, honestly, I think Harbaugh was playing it conservative with injuries. I think he just wants everybody close to, if not 100% for Ohio State. So, like, Page
Yep.
is just coming off of an injury that kept him out a couple of weeks. So he's probably like, you know what? Let me not risk anything. We got RJ, we got Rod Moore. I don't know if Quentin Johnson really played that much. I don't know if they went three safety look that much either, but I think
I did
they were
not
just
see him on defense.
Yeah, I didn't either. So I think they just kept it with the two safeties and then Mikey out there a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think, some of the injured guys was definitely a conservative approach, but ended up working out okay. I thought Mikey did a pretty good job, considering that their offense was, Isaiah Williams and Chase Brown, and Isaiah Williams was pretty limited. He only had 26 yards, so
it was so weird too when you're watching the game, like on TV. It seemed like Mikey did a bad job. Then you go back and look at the guys that he was covering, and they were extremely limited compared to what they've been doing all year. It's just like, what the hell happened? I guess it was just so glaring on the guys or on the plays that he, gave up some yardage. It was just like, what the heck is he doing out there? But it's tough to cover a guy like Isaiah Williams. So, and that's a guy that Michigan was heavily recruiting out of high school.
Absolutely, and I think they would have got him if Illinois, didn't hire his high school coach. But I do want to point out, on the rewatch today, there were a few more busts than we're used to seeing in the last 2 years. And I'm not just talking about
game or pass defense. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not just talking about where, like if Turner gets beat one-on-one, like that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about they ran a couple of like the fake bubble with a two deeper options. Those guys
like
kind
of tight end wheel route or something.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. There was about 3 times. The guy hit the guy right in the hands and he dropped it. One I thought DeVito threw to the wrong guy. And then another one was either knocked down or just an inaccurate ball.
I think it was inaccurate because they were pretty much open all 3 times or 4 times, however many times that they ran it.
Yeah, it was at least 3 that I'm remembering off the top of my head, but made me a little concerned that it seemed like they called us in man at the right times and did a few nice kind of rub routes, man beater type plays that kind of caught us off guard a little bit. And
I think Barrett was in coverage for most, if not all of them.
He was around the play. I'm not sure if he would necessarily be responsible. They ran one play action where it was it was kind of a throwback type look. And I thought Harrell could have easily had a sack. They were pulling a guard to block him. But Harrell aborted the pass rush 2 feet from the court, 2 yards maybe from the quarterback. And maybe that pulling guard clips him, just gets a piece of him and keeps him off DeVito. But it's a really odd play. And, DeVito throws it to a tight end right over, I believe it was Colston's head. And, everyone looks at that and says, Barrett's head. Everyone looks at that and what's Barrett doing? It's like, well,
I
mean, he came up on the play action fake just like all the other linebackers. Yeah. And one guy aborted a pass rush that should have been a sack. It's a tough play to cover. So I thought their offense coordinator did a pretty good job of scheming some guys open.
He did.
But kind of the chances I guess you're willing to take against Tommy DeVito that he's not going to hit all those. So overall, outside of the third quarter, Michigan really controlled the game. So defensively, so another good performance. Maybe not as flawless as it has been, but still good nonetheless. So
I don't really have anything else to add. I agree with some of the busted coverages there by the defense. I think it'd be easier to see on all 22 who really was responsible in coverage. It's kind of hard from broadcast view, of course, but that was a little concerning. it seemed like it was mostly tight ends and maybe like one of their big wide receivers. I think it was Hightower. I can't remember who it was.
Yep.
That was
it was
that made that
Hightower.
drop. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see against Ohio State. I don't think I've ever seen Ohio State run that kind of concept. I have seen them where they kind of roll out to the right and then kind of just dump it off to the running back in a like a screen. I think Travion Henderson scored on something like that last year, where Hutchinson like barely missed it with his hand. They run a lot of those, and I think they ran that play against Maryland on their first touchdown this past weekend. But that's something to watch out for from Michigan. One guy I wanted to point out before we head out is Mason Graham. He's not a true freshman. There's no way. He's just a man amongst boys, and it's his first year.
Yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of hype for Colston Loveland and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant.
Yeah.
Those guys are doing stuff that,
honestly, Derek Moore too. I really like Derek Moore in pass rush.
Will Johnson.
Oh my God, Will Johnson's run defense. The way he closes
those guys
in.
are playing significant minutes on an 11-0 football team as true freshmen. So
yeah,
the hype train for all those guys is going to be full steam ahead this offseason.
Honestly, next year's defense might be better than this year's.
Bring a lot back.
Yeah, bring a lot back. Mozzie's a big loss, but then you cover that up with a Graham or Benny or Kenneth Grant.
Yeah.
So hey, never know. So
corner will be a big question, but for another podcast.
That's for the off season. So
I do want to say we have been lucky that Fox has become the unofficial stepfather of Michigan. Michigan football, because man, the last 2 weeks have been ABC and their broadcast is horrendous.
Yeah.
Really I don't mind the announcers like McDonough. He's okay. He's not bad, but they zoom in so much on like
the camera work isn't good.
It's terrible. You can't see anything.
No.
And
I will say the only thing I like over Fox is the commercial breaks.
Yeah.
A lot less on ESPN.
Yeah, I agree. Fox has a ton. It seems like, but God, the ABC it's a different experience. It's just not good.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on this game?
Happy to get out with a win. We talked about before, many Michigan teams. Yep, many Michigan teams of the past and have blown games like this.
Sounded like Cade McNamara after Penn State.
Yep, just completely different team the last 2 years. This game was 2016 Iowa, except it was at home.
It was,
and they found a way to win. So
and these are true Harbaugh teams too, and you could tell how happy Harbaugh is with this team. So
he loves them.
Absolutely. Well, that does it for this episode of the Hail to Michigan podcast. We'll have the Ohio State preview coming up here soon with Contown. But in the meantime, you can catch this episode on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. And as always, go Blue.